Today is April 8th, 2025. This is day 7 of our small account challenge in the group, and today's trade was on NAOV. This was a stock that I posted in the alerts at 5:25 a.m. Mountain Time, so it was right at the top of our list all morning long. It made a huge move right out the gate. It was so fast that I had a hard time getting all the levels on as it was pushing through. So this is one of the reasons I tell you guys, hey, don't chase, just let it show you a pullback where it wants to hold support and make sure you understand what price was doing. So I had actually been looking at this a little bit before this time. I had to do some research and figure out, well, what's going on with this stock. I couldn't find any news. So that took me to the daily chart, and I had to figure out, well, why is this stock moving? What we had here was a technical breakout. By the time I saw it, it was already in the $6 range, okay, which is right here. So it had broke through the 50 EMA, the 34, and the 9 EMA. A major breakout. I know it's hard to see when I have all these lines on my chart, but if you look to the left, you'll see that it had actually broke above a lot of these other levels too. So the next level in line of concern is this 200 EMA, which it was right, it actually had pushed through that by the time I got my levels on the chart. It pushed through it a little bit and it was starting to do a little pullback. So that was kind of a really good sign that there is strength behind this thing. And looking through here, trying to figure out, well, what's going on with this thing and what is the potential? We had probability because of the breakout. What is the potential? Well, I drew this pink line. I made that pink because I felt like that was going to be the target for the day. And if you follow that back to the left, it was where this big dip where the tail had touched at 15.70. And that same $15.70 was touched here, here a couple of times. So it was essentially a critical level, but I saw it as a gap fill. I didn't really want to call it a critical level, but it looked like a gap fill to me. We had price surging through previous levels, and these lonely wicks here, they didn't pose a whole lot of resistance. So I wasn't too concerned about them. You could tell right away that what we had was a technical breakout on a super nano float with a little bit of short interest. And that is a highly volatile combination of factors, which fueled the probability for the potential. I marked this yellow line. This was my 200 EMA, where the 200 was at pre-market. And of course, this is the 50, this blue line. So those were the two levels of concern. Really, my main concern was the 200 EMA. So here's where it pushed initially at 5:25 a.m. through that yellow 200 EMA on, this is the daily 200 EMA, this level right here, which was about $6.40. We had a target of 670 right here. That was just a little above this yellow line. My entry was right here. I waited for the pullback and it held 589. That was my stop loss. I knew this thing had a lot of potential. My reward was way past 3 times my risk. So this trade made sense to me. And as it was pushing through, it tagged this 200 EMA and then it continued on. And I just stayed with this trade. Once it got past this 200 EMA, right, this $6.40, which was the daily level of the 200 EMA, once it got past this level, I'm completely profitable. As long as it held that, I would stay with the trade until it reached my target. That was my goal. It pushed all the way through, it went up to $9.20. It kind of hung out there. Then we had a little pullback down to the 50 EMA. I wasn't worried during that sideways action that lasted for the majority of pre-market because it was holding my 200 EMA. Once it proved the 50 again here and held that, that became my stop loss throughout the entire pre-market hours. And then at opening bell, we had this doji, but since my stop was here, I was fine, $7.35. Didn't come down there. When it held that, I moved it up to this next one. I just was doing things minute by minute. The next one was $7.80. The tail didn't even touch that one. We had a nice buy signal right there. And then we had our halt. And someone in the group yesterday asked me, how do you trade a halt? It really depends on your risk tolerance. It really depends on the trade that you're currently in when the halt occurs. I was profitable here, so I didn't have any trouble at all holding. I knew my stop loss now was, I moved it up. When price opened on this candle, it was above that $8.15. So I used that as my new stop, held all through that halt. When price resumed on this candle at 7:37 a.m., you can see how strong that one was. It was like a $3 candle in that 1 minute. I made the right decision, but again, it really depends on your risk tolerance. What is your stop loss? I was profitable, so it was a no-brainer for me to stay in with this trade. Otherwise, had I just gotten in there and price was doing this, this would have been my stop loss. So my risk would have been really low and sensible. At this point, price was just surging, surging, surging. It hit this $12.60. It hung out there for a little while. Then we started to see some sideways action, lots of dojis. I expected a pullback. After that huge push, obviously we're going to have a pullback. I mean, from $8 all the way up to almost $13. Yes, expect a pullback. I was being flexible with my stop loss. I told myself I'm profitable. It could pull all the way down to the 50 EMA if it wants to. I'll stay with it. But if it closes below the 50 EMA or this level, which was the $10 level, as long as it holds that, I'll stay with it. It didn't quite reach the 50 there. Tails started to go up from there. And so I knew I was in good shape. Price was probably going to resume and push up to my target of $15.70. And that's exactly what happened. I don't know when people got in this trade late, maybe here. I don't know what happened there. But I think there may have been some chasing going on in the group because there were people asking, well, what is your exit? And that was when price was doing all of these dojis. What is your exit? I kept hitting 1570, 1570, 1570. How many times? And so that's why I made the comment. The exit that I see is 1570. So this high here that made $16.25, that was on a lower volume bar. So that was the other clue that, hey, there's going to be a reversal coming up pretty soon. And if you look back to the left, we had this high volume here. The next high was on lower volume here, and then this high was on lower volume. So yeah, absolutely, we can expect a reversal. That's exactly what happened. So those of you who didn't listen to me and didn't take the opportunities, how many opportunities did it hit? 1570. You had all the time in the world to get out at 1570. Pay attention to volume. If I happen to give warnings, pay attention to that because it might save you some trouble. So that was my trade on NAOV. So let me update you on my small account challenge, where we are in it. As you know, last Monday, not yesterday, but a week ago yesterday, started this challenge out with just $500 in my account. After today's trade, my account stands at $20,899.02. The key here was knowing the daily chart, knowing your risk and reward, and planning your entry and not chasing, and making sure you mark special levels, like knowing where the 50 EMA is from the daily chart, knowing where the 200 EMA is on the daily chart, using those to your advantage like I did. Here was my entry 606, my exit was $15.70. This trade paid me $12,830.84. The trade only took 156 minutes. When you're making $12,000, almost $13,000, 156 minutes is nothing. You have to be willing to put in the time, put in a little bit of research and effort into planning that trade out and being able to understand probability and potential. So tomorrow will hopefully be my last day of this small account challenge. And yes, I have finished small account challenges in 7 days before, so this won't be my fastest, but it's one of my fastest actually since I've done these. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Just guys, be sure and know what is your risk, what is your reward. Are you chasing? Don't ever chase. Don't overstay your welcome in a trade, and don't get greedy. I hope this challenge has been teaching you a few things. I've gone over some really important topics while we have done this thing, and I know I can see in the group that people are starting to really grasp onto the overall strategy that we use in this group. I'm still seeing questions asking what setup they should be looking for and things like that. And if you're asking others in the group what setup you're supposed to be looking for, then you need to go back to the videos and really learn the strategy. You need to go to the PDF with the trading rules. You need to really start to utilize some of the tools and really study and take some notes because you're not there yet. You're going to risk some big losses if those are the questions you're still asking. There's nothing wrong with trading only 1 or 2 shares just to see if you're grasping the concept. It's not a difficult concept at all, but sometimes it takes a little while to train your eyes to see these things. All right, I hope this video was helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know and we'll talk soon.